Thank you very much. Senator Moran.
Chairwoman, thank you. General, thank you for your presence today. Just a couple more questions, perhaps a follow-up to a couple of my colleagues' questions. But first of all, I'd like to start with Title 42 and your conversation with Senator Braun. I think your answer to him was more prospectively what might transpire and the need for additional resources in the future. I would like to highlight or focus on this year, your budget request that's in front of us now. I know there's some uncertainty with federal judge in New Orleans and a decision, but it seems to me that, my view, this is a pretty reckless decision, but because the estimates are about 14,000 migrants could begin crossing the border per day after Title 42 ends on May the 23rd. That has to have enormous resource consequences for the federal government. I think Homeland Security is already talking about additional, running out of money and needing additional dollars. ICE and Border Patrol, it's estimated, could be out of funds by July of this year. What about the impact on DOJ components, marshals, immigration courts, U.S. attorneys' offices? Have you prepared any estimates? Has the department prepared estimates as to what the increasing expenditures may be this year, unaccounted for in your budget request?
I don't know that we have. I don't think we have those numbers now, but we can. I think our staff can work with yours. There's no question that there will be an increase in U.S. attorney resources needed along the southern border. We've hired, with respect to the IJs, as I was telling Senator Braun, we've hired all the way up under the current appropriation. So without more, we won't be able to increase the numbers. We are doing everything we can to streamline the system and to move people, the IJs, to the borders to assist there. But look, we're always happy for more money, and I'll be happy to have our staff speak with the subcommittee staff about that.
Well, General, I mean, the crux of my conversations with you earlier in today's hearing generally revolved around violent crime. And my view is that the consequence of what the administration is determined to do with Section 42 can't be compensated for by removing resources going to fight violent crime. The border and violent crime are clearly related, significantly related, but I remember visiting the border, and what stood out to me is that when we were housing the juveniles on the border, 40% of the Border Patrol agents were then in the housing business, not in the Border Patrol business. And I think there's an analogy there of something the Department of Justice must avoid, which is to take resources away from something that is a crisis already to address the crisis that is going to occur with the removal of 42. That makes sense?
Yes, and I assure you we don't want to remove the money that we need to fight violent crime to put it anywhere else.
Has the department either volunteered or been tasked with providing DOJ personnel to support DHS during this crisis?
I don't know what the
U.S. Marshals.
Yeah, well, yes. But to be clear, we don't do border patrolling. None of our law enforcement is trained for that or anything else. The Bureau of Prisons is going to make buses available and for the transfers that the Border Patrol needs assistance for, and the Marshal Service is going to be providing additional deputy U.S. Marshals to assist CBP at the border. But I don't want to overstate how much that is, because our ability to make those contributions is not large.
Thank you. Senator Shaheen visited with you about drugs, in particular rural and small states. You and I had a conversation probably as you were being confirmed about rural law enforcement departments, and I asked you, and you agreed, and I think you've pursued making certain that rural agencies, small agencies in particular, have a fair shot at getting the federal resources. Anything that you can do to update, or anything that you would request of me to make that more less onersome and more likely?
I think we have been doing that. We've made it easier to make for small law enforcement agencies, particularly the rural ones that you're speaking of, to make the applications for the grants. I will tell you that on my recent trip to U.S. attorneys' offices to talk to joint law enforcement task forces in Colorado and Louisiana in particular, met with rural sheriffs, and I wanted to make sure that these task forces were not only focused on the cities, but were focused on helping the rural sheriffs as well. And in both of those circumstances, at least, we got considerable affirmation that is working well. This is the rural law enforcement provides the boots on the ground who know the people in the community. And the federal law enforcement, DEA, FBI, ATF marshals, are able to provide the technology and the skills sets necessary to, find people who cross the border from one jurisdiction into another and to bring them back. So this is anecdotal, but my anecdotal work suggests very good cooperation in these joint task forces.
Thank you. My time has more than expired. I just would mention one other thing, and perhaps there could be a follow-up by you or your staff. I'm surprised that the DOJ's only requesting, your budget request is only an additional $68.6 million to investigate and prosecute cybercrime, including $52 million at the FBI and $15 million at the U.S. Attorney's Office. The magnitude of the problem is I can't imagine can be addressed with that minimal or modest amount.
Oh, maybe my numbers look a little different than yours.
All right.
Mine show up more than $1.2 billion to address cybersecurity and cybercrime across the country. The increases are $15 million for 50 more U.S. attorneys to bring these cases. For another $88 million for additional 75 FBI personnel to bring these cases, and then for our own cybersecurity for the Justice Department and all the law enforcement agencies, $115 million. So I'm not sure why the numbers are.
I may have misspoken, or certainly at minimum was confusing. Those are the increases. Not the total amount
we did
over enacted levels.
No, we did get more money in the recent supplemental because of Ukraine. I can promise you we expect to ask for more money, and part of the money we're going to ask for is cyber defense because we're quite worried, obviously, about that. Other money in there will be for I'm trying to decide whether to call it klepto capture or just our sanctions task force, but it's the klepto capture task force. So we'll be asking for additional money, but you did give us more money in the supplemental on this as well.
General, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I did agree with Senator Shaheen to help her or work together with her to see that we get the U.S. attorney process back under a fashion in which we get some confirmations concluded.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moran, on both counts. Senator Graham.
Thank you. Good morning.